In the first days of the world, Terraria's heart was found to be lacking. Its soul was cold, and without the ever-watchful eye of the core custodians, the demons, the planet would die. They did not desire to be trapped, maintaining this world for an eternity, however. So the demons would try something else. They would try to ignite the core with a flame of their own making. But little could they know the effect their shadowy flame would have and the extent some would go in order to wield it. Gods had begun. Humanity had all players deep and challenging, different is less likely to get me horribly Tirelessly, the creatures of the underworld would work, stoking the fires at the core of Terraria, ensuring that the overworld would go on living. And yet they received no thanks. Few even knew of their presence, and those who did failed to care. All that time ago, the beings that would become known as demons and imps were not all that unlike other life. As the centuries rolled on though, their work was beginning to change them, twist their forms into something more suitable for their set tasks. If anything was to be done to save the builders, it had to be done soon, and so it was. Gathering together the leading minds still living from the construction of Terraria, the builders thought on how to solve their problem. There was no doubt that the core should have ignited when the world's mass became large enough, and yet it hadn't. There was no logical reason why it had not worked, no sense in the whole conundrum, unless, and then it all became clear. The core had not ignited because it was never meant to. Something had tampered with the birth of the world, sabotaged it, and it was still sabotaging it even now. The builders knew there had to be something hidden deep in the underworld, something that drained the flames from the core, so they set out to find this source of disruption. Digging far into the hellstone and carving out great hollows in the bedrock, the builders searched until they found it. The virgin flame at the very centre of the planet. The spark that was to bring life to the world and everything on it. But it was not as it should have been. It had been poisoned. The true spark replaced with a cold, dark flame. Not one that brought life, but one that took it. In that instant, builders knew that there was little they could do to remove the flame. It was part of Terraria. It had sapped the life of the planet for too long, grown too strong. Still, they were desperate, and failure was not an option. A cast of builders was tasked with retrieving a portion of what was dubbed the Shadow Flame, and do whatever they could to cure the poison. Doing as they were tasked, the Flame Keepers experimented long and arduously with the Shadow Flame. They replicated it, combined it with natural flame, tried to reverse its effects, but everything resulted in failure. They even tried to recreate the Shadow Flame itself, in an attempt to understand how to engineer it. But it was clear that it had been designed by a mind far beyond anything the builders could understand. It would turn out that the flame held much more than the builders realized, as during these experiments, odd events began to occur. Members of the experimental team had started to act strangely. They were aggressive when not around the flame, almost possessive over it. So dedicated was the search for a solution though, that behavior like this was simply overlooked. That was until it came to a point where several of the researchers vanished with a sample of the flame. Panic began to spread at what they might do with the sample, for its power was still largely unknown, so search teams were dispatched, and they soon found the researchers simply praying to the flame. It was obvious it held some sort of a sway over them, and it was decided that, even though the researchers' actions were not harmful, the unpredictable nature of the flame left the underworld leaders with no choice. With a heavy heart, they chose to abandon the research, and exile not just the ones who had absconded with the flame, but everyone who had ever had any contact with it. It was reasoned that not knowing the full strength of the flame may lead to chaos in the underworld, the cooling of the core, and the death of Terraria. Therefore, they felt it was better to remain imprisoned and continue living than to die with the world they had created. A great many of the underworld peoples disagreed with this decree and went with the exiled to continue working on a possible cure. In time, after travelling through the dense underworld of Terraria, they emerged on the surface of an island, far from the main land masses. It was here that they would continue to work on finding a cure to the poison flame, their bodies adapting to the surface conditions while their underground brethren twisted into the mindless demons they are today. The research would not last long though, and eventually the island dwellers would abandon their experiments, locking away the secret of the Shadow Flame lest it corrupt them completely, vowing to protect it for all time. In the course of history they would become isolationist and simplistic, garnering the name goblins from outsiders for their squat and unusual appearance. Even despite their best efforts, the Shadow Flame did not remain on the island. During the experiments, it had been found that items could be imbued with the power of the flame, and several had made their way off the island into the hands of those who would decrypt its secrets. The Shadow Flame had always been part of Terraria, but now it was available to its people, and while one still may solve the curse of the flame and truly ignite Terraria's heart, many more use it for more nefarious purposes, and the question is raised: are these actions their own, or guided by the hand which originally placed the Shadow Flame in the first place? Hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe so you'll be the first to know about my future videos. And don't forget, I've got a Patreon and merch store. I think that's about it, so have a great day and I'll see you later.